Hello, my name is Matthew Darlitz and I'm the Editor-in-Chief of the Neuropsychotherapist. Welcome to another weekly report. First up, we have Dr. Dave from Shrink Wrap Radio. Thanks, Dr. Dave.
Hello again, Matthew. It's good to be back here and to have the opportunity to tell you and your readers and viewers and listeners about my upcoming podcast. It's number 390 with Dutch psychiatrist Adeline van Wanning. And we discuss her new book, which is called The Less Dust, the More Trust. And this is an account of her experience in 2007 going to a 3-month meditation retreat high in the Rocky Mountains above Denver, Colorado at the Shambhala Meditation Retreat Center. And it's an extraordinary account. First of all, a 3-month silent meditation retreat is pretty formidable. And it was not just the fact that there was meditation happening, but that there was intensive scientific investigation along with it. And it's such a fascinating story, and her book goes into so much detail. I'm not able to show you a copy of it because I had to work off a PDF copy before the publication actually went live. I believe the publication is now available in the Amazon.com bookstore and others. Let me tell you a few more of the details that come to mind about this study. People had to apply to be in it. Most of the research on meditation up till now have focused on one extreme or the other in terms of the experience of the meditator subjects. So we've had research studies who studied Tibetan monks who had been meditating for years and years and years on one end, and on the other end there are a number of studies designed to show that there are changes in the brains of novice meditators after a relatively short period of meditation. Well, this particular study went after people who were kind of midway between those 2 points. They had to have been on at least 2 5-day or longer meditation retreats, and they had to have been meditating for some years, and they had to go through a whole battery of tests just to be selected and to be able to pay their $5,000+ to be part of this experience. The meditations themselves were led by psychologist Dr. Alan Wallace, who himself was a monk in Dharamsala for 14 years. So he's certainly well qualified to lead the mental/spiritual part of it. And then there was Dr. Clifford Saran led the scientific part of the team. And I think many of your listeners and readers will be most interested in the scientific parts because it has real implications for the practice of neuropsychotherapy. And they took all kinds of measurements, including EEG. There were 3 periods during which the meditators had to wear EEG caps on their heads. They had blood drawn multiple times. They had to take extensive batteries of paper and pencil tests. They kept journals, etc. So much data was collected in 2007 that a number of papers have been published as a result of that, and the data is still being analyzed. So this was quite a unique study. One of the most unique features was they also studied chromosomal changes, looking at the telomeres. So this is an incredible undertaking, I would say, and a unique undertaking. And you'll learn all about it, or a lot about it, not only by reading Dr. Van Wanning's book, but by also listening to my podcast, Shrink Wrap Radio, number 390. So back to you, Matthew.
Well, thank you, Dr. Dave. And now let's go across to Arizona, where we have Deborah Kaplan. going to talk to us a little bit about mirror neurons. Thanks, Deborah.
Hi, good evening. My name is Deborah Kaplan, and I'm a new and recent contributor to the Neuropsychotherapist. I'm coming to you from Tucson, Arizona in the United States. We are one of the warmer states for the winter as compared to the rest of my country, where in more north and even east, we are getting a lot of snow and a lot of cold and a lot of wet. I wanted to talk to you tonight about the concept of mirror neurons. Mirror neurons were first discovered by Giacomo Rizzolatti at the University of Parma in Italy, I think around 1960. And it was first discovered in some of the experiments he was doing with monkeys. And this is a brain cell that when we are witnessing or in the act of doing something, that we are able to recall the feeling, the sensation, and or the outcome of this act that we witness or are in the presence of doing. And as a result, this is how we learn empathy. Researchers are thinking that there is perhaps something to do with the autism spectrum and some impairment to the mirror neurons that have developed or are impaired in some way. But what I wanted to talk about is mirror neurons and how we learn by witnessing and by emulating. It's the mimicry that we're able to observe in other people. Certainly when we are new, young infants, part of how we learn is by what is mirrored back to us by our caregivers, by our loved ones. And so, for example, an infant, if she or he is having distress in the stomach or they're not feeling too good, part of what they learn is that hopefully their needs are attended to, that their caregiver, their mom, their father, caregivers will actually attend to what their needs are, and by so doing, learn that their needs will be met. If a child, baby, is crying and someone comes to them and says, "Oh, what's the matter?" By way of facial expression, they're getting that someone understands and is empathizing with what's going on. Hence, that learning of empathic response. As it appears more closely to current day, in the Olympics that are going on now in Sochi, Russia, we witness a lot of athletes that have spent many years preparing for the event that they are going to be either in or that they are being a part of a team effort. And so in attending the Olympics, I'm aware that some of the athletes that may be competing on the ice or on downhill or in snowboarding, that I want for them to succeed. And I'm aware that all this hard work and all of their practice is coming to the finality of their competition, and at times may be summed up in 2 minutes of competition or in a 5-minute ice skating routine. And so occasionally when a skater falls or a snowboarder drops their tip or a skier is caught on an edge and they fall, you notice in yourself, perhaps when you're observing and watching the Olympics by television, or if you're lucky enough to be there, or by the people who are observing on the sidelines, that you see their facial expression. They go, "Oh," or they're able to actually feel, even though they were not the ones doing the falling, that they're able to feel what the athlete might be experiencing, and by association have an empathic response. And that is mirror neurons at work. So just a short little blurb tonight. I wanted to say hello to the readership and to the viewers who are here at the Neuropsychotherapist website, and I look forward to posting some more going forward. Good night.
Thank you, Deborah, for that insight into mirror neurons. And now we're going to Sydney, where we have Richard Hill going to give us some updates on what he's discovered this week. Thanks, Richard.
Hi, Matthew. Hi, everybody. Here we are, Friday again, looking at our what's going on, what's happening this week. Interesting paper. First of all, one I just want to mention, which you should go and have a look at. I just did this. It's in Scientific Reports in their number 4, article number 4010. Different yawns, different functions. Now, that's by Alicia Leone et al. Now, I'm not going to tell you more about that. Go and have a look at yourself. But yawns, there's another thing that needs a look at from the neuroscience point of view. But the one that I want to talk about is the systematic review that was done. Now, it's in Brain and Cognition. It's not out for a while. It's actually for their April edition, so in volume 86 in April 2004, and 2014. That'll be page 1 to 9. And it's working memory improvement with non-invasive brain stimulation of the dorsal prefrontal cortex. It's a systematic review and meta-analysis. Now, these meta-analysis and systematic reviews are good to look at sometimes, partly because it saves you a lot of reading, but also it gets down to some detail of where the thinking is going. Now, what they're talking about is the transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, and they're looking at the ways in which, by stimulating the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, that this builds up and increases the capacity of the working memory. What they found was principally it did, which is very good. And there's two things in this. One is, okay, TMS, yay, we stimulate the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex and that improves our working memory. But the other point of it is that why aren't we stimulating, or what is it that is not being stimulated in the dorsolateral area of the prefrontal cortex that we might be able to do by our own perspective? What is it that's holding it back, that's restraining it if it has this increased potential? So those are interesting things to think about. How can we train the brain, how we can do brain training to activate and keep that prefrontal cortex variously active in its different aspects. Of course, interpersonal neurobiology, Dan Siegel's aspect there talking about it. So have a look at that one in Brain and Cognition. There are three things I want to mention that are sort of news. Now, I've only got black and whites because I've just taken them off the net, but you go in there, a couple of great books. Now, here's one, The Brain Bible. Now, that's brought to you by my friend John Arden. Wonderful. I mean, he wrote that wonderful book, Rewire Your Brain, and a couple of other ones. So The Brain Bible, lovely green colours in that one. The Brain Bible, go look it up in Amazon. And John's terrific. And this is looking a lot about old age, about carrying the best brain over time through what's going on. And then we'll talk about Dan Siegel's one, brain. Oh, what's the name of it? Brainstorming, brain managing. Anyway, his really great one on the teenage brain. And the other one here is Awakening Clinical Intuition by my friend Terry Marks Tarlow. She's great. She does a lot of this artistic work and creative work. This is her second book in 2 years. Alan Shaw writing the foreword, and she's talking about this nature of the intuitive aspect. Now, I love this stuff because I think this is very Ericksonian in the sense of utilization and the importance of utilization and of being able to take what you do and do something more with it on the day. And it's by understanding the neuroscience, by understanding the focus and flow that's going on underneath the behavior, that I think we can be more creative. I actually had a client just the other day, and I started doing a little bit of a mindfulness thing. It was actually the Wheel of Awareness that Dan Siegel talks about. And as we were doing it, I got him placed in the center of the hub, and I started to look at the wheel. But I started to adjust it because the client himself was giving me the information he needed, what he needed to work on. And we ended up doing quite an interesting and fairly unique, unique in the sense I haven't done it before, but derivative from this Wheel of Awareness process, looking at the areas, putting him in the center of this spinning wheel, so the center where he was safe, and looking at the areas and giving them different names. He nominated colors, he nominated feelings. It was quite interesting. So that intuitive clinical process is really important to understand, and Terry Marks Tarlow was great. So lovely friend John Arden doing wonderful The Brain Bible. Can't find, great writer. And Terry Marks Tarlow, a new and important name in things. Last thing, International World Bipolar Day. Now, it's the first time they're doing this. March 30th this year. And the reason they're choosing March 30th is because that's Vincent van Gogh, or Vince van Gogh, depending on your pronunciation. It's his birthday, and he was reportedly posthumously to be quite bipolar, amongst other things. Cut your ear off. So World Bipolar Day. Look out for things about that March 30th. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have had a great week and have another great week in front of this one. This is Richard Hill signing off. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Richard. By the way, John Arden is going to be featured in our April edition of the Neuropsychotherapist magazine. We've got an interview there that we'll be featuring, and also Terry with her new workbook will also be featured. We're going to be taking a chapter from her workbook, so you'll be able to explore that. So look out for those on the 1st of April. That's all we have time for this week. I hope there's something in there for you to explore, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.